This is Karen with NewClevelandRadio.net. And today I am introducing you to a new podcast. It's called Tracing Your Steps with Tracy. And Tracy is Tracy Williams, who I have known. And Tracy, I was trying to figure it out today. I think Alex was about 16. He's 30 now, so that has to be about 14 years ago.
That's
Um,
crazy.
I know it is really crazy. And um, I really have to thank your ex-husband, Terry, for introducing us because he was Alex's boss at the time. And he took a liking to Alex that really changed Alex, you know, f- forever, really. Um, and it was such a good relationship. And we didn't know right away what the connection was for Terry with Alex until one day Terry said to me, "Do you talk about Alex being on the autism spectrum?" And I said, "Well, yes. Why?" And he said, "Well, I have a son on the spectrum." And I said, "Oh, well, that's wonderful. How old is he?" And what was he, about 6 at the time?
He was young, yes.
Yeah. And
Maybe even younger than that.
wow. And so Terry asked at that time, if Alex could come over and meet Ben. And we said, absolutely. And next thing we know, Alex is one of 5 children in your house. um, but you just welcomed him with open arms and basically with the same smile you have on your face today. And that is what warmed me to you automatically. Um, you were a mom with a husband who was working god awful hours, and you had 4 little ones under one roof, and one son who was on the spectrum who needed a little special attention. And yet, I know you hide a lot behind that smile, and that's what this program is going to be about, because a lot of us do that. Everybody thinks that we're just doing just fine, right,
Right.
Tracy? And the reality of it is we all have um, things in our past that come out and really make us feel terrible, but we're afraid to share those things sometimes because what are people going to think about us?
Right.
But you and I have been able to share some of those things, and a lot through Facebook, which thank God there's instant messenger, so not everybody has to hear everything that's going on. But I've been amazed over the last couple of years how you've gotten through so much. And yet, when we talked a couple weeks ago, you admitted you're not always happy behind that smile.
No.
So tell our listeners, because I know you've got a lot of girlfriends, okay,
Yes.
and they probably are the same as you, um, out there just making life happen,
Hmm.
um, and holding all those insecurities inside. So, how do we move forward?
Well, first you have to really, I'm struggling with this right now at this season of life. You have to love yourself and know what you need and what's going to make you happy. I think that's the hardest lesson for all of us to learn, because as moms, we're used to putting everyone else before ourselves.
Right.
And
And you,
especially when we have a child on the spectrum or a sick child.
yes,
So
and you've had both.
yes, yes. Um, so I have 4 children. Ben, who we've spoke about, is on the spectrum. He is doing amazing. He's in college now. He is a twin. Zachary is his twin, and he is doing amazing too. I have another one that's Jonathan. He's in college. So I have 3 in college.
Wow.
And then Aubrey is a senior in high school, and she has gone through 10 brain surgeries in the past 4 years.
And
So,
what I find interesting, your kids, whether it's been Aubrey who's been ill, or Ben who may have needed a little bit more support,
Mhm.
um, or Johnny being the oldest and sometimes feeling like he has to hold the fort together.
Yeah,
Um, your kids tend to be very resilient. And I really want to applaud Aubrey for that, because when you've talked about her journey on Facebook, um, most young people would just want to crawl under the covers and not even let their mother take a picture of them, let alone talk about what she's going through. And
yeah,
yet she she always wants to get back to school, back to her friends.
absolutely. And I think that's what's the driving force behind her getting better is you have to have something to look forward to. uh, for her was when she was the sickest was she wanted to go to prom. So she pushed her way through multiple surgeries so she could go to prom. I mean, you have to have that excitement, I think, in order to grow. So for another example is that for us as adults, we have to have some sort of goal or we become complacent, I
Yes,
guess is the best word. So
absolutely.
with her it's the same thing. You have to have something to look forward to. And I think that is a reason why there's Make-A-Wish too, because that gives hope to kids.
And
And
she had to make a wish.
she did. She did. She wanted to go to Disney and that's what we did. We went to Disney and that was another thing that a goal. She wanted to be able to go to do that. Unfortunately, the boys couldn't go because they're adults, and it's everybody that's living within your household. So, I mean,
Right.
that was different. But I have to say, the boys have been so supportive of her. I mean, the twins, their senior year was her sickest year. So, most of the time, I was in the hospital with her. So, we
And
had to lean on the dads.
absolutely. And it's difficult for a lot of us to really understand what you were going through. Um, you know, both of my boys have had minor illnesses and been in the hospital in the past. Um, but I always knew that what they had was something that was, we were going to find a cure, whether it was their diet or whatever.
Right.
Um, and so, as terrible as it felt for me, maybe sitting around a hospital for a week or two,
Hmm.
uh, after that, it was behind us.
Right.
But
Right.
for you guys, it wasn't like that at all.
We still have days where, like, just for example, today, she's starting a Metrodose pack because she's having a little bit of issues. But, each day is a new day, and I can only be there for her at this point and keep her comfortable. And as of now, she's going to school. She's a normal teenager, driving the whole kit and caboodle there.
And that's something that a lot of people don't understand too. When sometimes somebody will say, well, I've had a child who's had brain surgeries, one after another, um, has these episodes of pain. And you think, oh, that child is at home lying in bed. But that's not Aubrey. She's a cheerleader too, right?
Well, she hasn't cheered since 8th grade because of this.
Okay.
She was gonna try out, and then every time there was tryouts, she was sick or
Aw,
there was another reason. Yeah. So she did play soccer up until this year. And
interesting. Yeah.
yeah, and she's not allowed to, she has two shunts, so she's not allowed to bump or hit her head on the ball. So this year she decided that maybe I shouldn't be doing that. So
Well, at least she figured that out, and that's a good thing. So
yeah,
again, we're looking at Aubrey's journey, but that intersects with your journey as well. And
absolutely.
one of the big journeys you've been on is weight loss, and really encouraging us, showing us online, um, you know, your transformation. Uh,
Hmm.
and every once in a while, I'll think to myself, I couldn't do that. You know, I don't even like looking at myself in the mirror. Um, but I know it's important, because when we face ourselves and we tell other people, hey, look at me,
Yep.
and I'm going to do something good for myself.
Yes,
We make ourselves accountable.
exactly.
So,
I,
what
I
is the program that you do?
I do Beachbody. I'm a Beachbody coach. I have lost over 87 pounds, but I have to admit, I have gained some over COVID, and I'm going through a separation, so divorce. So I put on a little weight. We all have issues where mine is emotional eating. I feel like that makes me feel better, and I'm working through that myself. And so I can help these ladies because I'm not the only one out there that has that issue.
You're right.
Yes, I call it growing pains. So we're going to go forward, but then sometimes we go back. But it's the big picture we have to look at. You know, you can't get down on yourself if you've had a rough season, because we all have that. We just can, tomorrow's a new day. We got to keep on moving. Um, One thing an analogy that I like to use is that a flower, the bloom. Somebody that's bloomed never looks back and says that that was so hard, that work was so hard. They don't talk about that part. You just see this beautiful flower. So my job is to show them that it's not always easy. I have a medical issue that it hinders my weight loss, and it it's really can be hard, but they don't know. They just see, oh, she's lost that weight. Instead, they didn't see the process. Do you know what I mean? Is
Oh,
that making
definitely
sense?
get it. And the sad part is that our society has convinced us all we're supposed to look a certain way.
Mhm.
Okay. Another podcast we do here is about ageism. And on that podcast, we talk about, we need to age the way we feel the most comfortable. There once was a time that my mother said to me, you get to a certain age, Karen, you have to cut your hair. It has to be short.
Mhm.
And I believed that for a long time. And my
Yeah,
husband hated my hair short. And so I started growing it out. And I realized that that's okay because that's for me. Now, I have friends who have decided to go gray, especially with COVID. I've
yeah,
chosen, no, that's not for me.
yeah.
And so we have these choices to make. Some are difficult, some are very easy. Um,
Mhm.
I too, am trying to lose weight. Um, I put on weight when I couldn't exercise because of my knee.
Mhm.
And then, like you, I use that as a good excuse not to start trying to lose the weight. Um, and now it's even more of a struggle. And again, age is paying part of that. I have
Mhm.
a thyroid condition that is part of that. And
Ew.
so I just have to accept certain things about myself. And so that is part of my journey. But yet, when I watch what you do and how you talk about as exhausted as I was tonight, I did my exercises.
Yeah.
And then I go and I do mine.
Good, good.
you know and and that's what we're going to do on this program. We're going to encourage each other, okay, but we're not going to get mad at each other when we
Right.
don't do those things, because
Yeah.
you know what, sometimes we just need to say no.
And you know what? What I tell a lot of my clients is that you could be on the same exact diet, do the same exact workout, and our bodies are still going to be totally different from each other. I
Right.
mean, everybody's got a different shape and size. It has to do with genetics also. So we have to look at that. We have to feel amazing about ourselves. And that goes the same with your hair. Your hair
It's
looks
right.
beautiful. That I love that link. And that's funny because I remember thinking about my grandmother too. All of them had short hair.
Right. Well, and there was something about, when your hair is long, um it's out of control. And for women, especially with gray, spiky hair, it
Mhm.
can make you look, not so pretty. Um, but there are ways to change that.
Yeah,
And again, you have to look in the mirror yourself and say, I like my reflection. It has nothing to do with you telling me that I look good. I mean,
right.
yeah, that can be a nice pat on the back, But if I go back and look in the mirror and I don't like what I'm seeing, then your compliment means nothing to me.
Right. And that's something too that people don't do. They don't look at themselves in the mirror and say, I love you. You know, they don't give themselves the love that they need and deserve. And, you know, when someone does give you a compliment, I notice a lot of women in particular say, they just say thank you, or, oh, no, that
Yeah.
I'm, you know, I didn't lose weight, or, you know, like, thanks, instead of saying, I've worked really hard to get that weight off, or, you know, I really think I look good with the hair. You have to be proud of what you've achieved. And some people might say that's a little bit, you know, their head's big or whatever, but I honestly think that you need to have that self-love, or no one else can love you.
Well,
And
and
I
it,
struggle.
but it's not having the big head, because the big head person is the person who's going to walk into a room and say, "Hey, look at me. Don't I
Right.
look beautiful?" But when somebody, tells you that they like something that you're doing, um, and you're proud of it, admit
Hmm.
it. Yes,
Yeah.
I like what I'm doing. Thank you for noticing.
Yeah.
Um, and I think we all struggle at that. We think there are some people who that it comes easy for, but I think they're practicing to make it come easy. Uh,
That's exactly the confidence. It is something you learn. You're not born with it,
no.
and you have to accept it. And going through a separation and a divorce a second time, I hate to say admit to that, but um you know, you start questioning, is it me? But you have to know that you're good enough and you're strong enough and you can get through. And the only way you can do that is to believe in yourself.
Well, and when I went through my divorce, um, I'd been married 7 years at that point, and somebody said to me, "Do you think your husband's getting the 7-year itch?"
Mm.
I'm not saying that caused our divorce, but they planted that seed in my head. And so I became a different person. I became a little more angry at him. Um, and then he didn't like what he was seeing in me. And, it snowballed. And yes, we got divorced.
Yeah.
I was quite young at the time. And I thought to myself, nobody's ever going to love me. I'm worthless. And it took another girlfriend of mine, um, who I've remained close to this whole time. And she said to me one day, she said, "It's not about him. It's not about the 7+ years you spent with him. It's about you.
Hmm.
So start liking you, find out what you want to do. And if somebody else comes along, that's great. And if not, who do you have to live with?"
Yourself.
And exactly. And I just looked at her and I said, "Well, I don't want to be alone." She said, "Sometimes it's a lot of fun to be alone." It took me a long time to realize that. And then I met my husband.
Hmm.
Uh, so I didn't have to do it very long on my own.
Right.
But there should be no shame in a relationship not working. We all change. I mean, you said it yourself. You
Right.
know? We all don't
Right.
lose weight the same way. We all don't stay in love the same way.
It's true.
So, you know, you love yourself.
Yeah. And that's the thing. One of my friends said to me almost the exact same thing the other day. And you know, I can preach it, but sometimes when it's you don't, it takes a minute. Somebody has to remind you of your own words that, yes, I can do this. And I do have to love myself more. And I really haven't been alone. So this is all new for me.
Well, but the reality of it is we aren't alone. I mean, it's COVID, and yes, you're not
Yeah.
going out as much, but
Right.
you do have a core of friends. And sadly, women don't think about the fact that their women friends are so important.
Mm-hmm.
I sometimes see some of the things you post on Facebook and I get very, very jealous because it's like, oh, look at all these women who
Mm-hmm.
come together. They don't mind going out for a coffee or a drink or being on the phone crying on each other's shoulders.
Right.
But that is important for us. And we
Hmm.
have to realize that life isn't necessarily just about a man in our life, a partner. It's not just about our children, but it's about what is going to fulfill us. And a lot of that is our friendships.
And that is huge because that's something that in my marriage I did not. We spent so much time together. You I just didn't realize how much I missed those girlfriends, and I think that's something that we should teach almost to our kids, that you can have a little bit of a different life. Even though you're married doesn't mean that you have to do everything together.
Right.
Having that core group of friends is huge. It keeps me straight. It keeps me grounded. It
And,
builds you up.
and men need the same thing.
They do.
And we're
They
not
do.
telling you they should go out and have a bunch of girlfriends, but you know,
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's a touchy subject there. I mean, hanging out with the guys is different. Yeah.
right, exactly.
But
Um,
that'd be the same if we reversed it and we were hanging out with a guy friend. I mean,
right,
there's a certain line we don't cross.
absolutely. So your journey is very long, it's winding. Um, one of the things that I want to bring up, because I know that you have a very close family, okay, but your family doesn't live close by. So,
No.
how do you deal with, you know, those family ties when they're not here right now?
Well, we have a group chat, thank goodness, for cell phones. And during COVID, we did Zoom meetings. And so we could all meet together and see each other and to keep that open. I don't know what we do without that connection, because my parents, they're in PA, my sister's in PA. Even though I'm from Ohio, they've moved.
Okay.
And some of our friends have become our family too, which
Sure.
keeps a big group here, keeps me here, not moving. But yeah, definitely, because the kids were at college, so I have them all over the place. They could get into the Zoom or the chat, Snapchat with the kids. That's what we
Yep.
have a Snapchat group with the kids, but for the most part, we Zoom. It's
and, and,
huge.
that's, and that's important because, you know, not everybody thinks about getting together on Zoom. We hear other people are doing it and we think, oh, that's nice, but my family doesn't do it. Well, take the step forward.
Right.
I got together with two of my childhood friends on Zoom a couple of weeks ago. Um, Noreen lived right next door to me. We're about a year apart. And Sharon lived across the street from us, and she's about a year or two older than us.
Hmm.
And so they were my first girlfriends from being a baby on. And it was just so remarkable. It was like we hadn't missed a beat, and I haven't seen either one of them probably in 55 years.
That is amazing.
And so we can do those connections.
Absolutely.
And, many of us also don't realize that we have family members that are getting older. And this is a perfect time to reconnect with them.
Absolutely.
So, how do your parents do on Zoom?
Oh, they're great. They're very tech savvy, so they don't have any problem with that. I've got pretty young parents too, so um
And that's important. Um,
mhm.
before my mother passed away, my brother got her a Mac tablet, and he taught her how to do FaceTime.
Oh.
And I'll never forget this story he told us. His grandkids were visiting him, and he called my mother first, just tell her he's going to do a face chat with her, so she should go to her tablet. And he
Mhm.
reminded her what to do, and she said okay. And what she had forgotten was when he called her, she had just gotten out of the shower.
Oh.
And so she went and sat down at her table with her tablet, and she connected on FaceTime, and there is my little nephew who is looking at his great grandmother in the buff.
Oh no.
So, as great as Zoom and FaceTime is, we got to remember that sometimes people aren't really paying that much attention.
Right.
Um, and they talk about us doing Zoom meetings with, just dressed from the top up, so you
Yeah.
don't want to stand. But she was undressed from the top down.
Oh my goodness.
So it's a great memory for all of us.
I
Uh,
love it.
yes, but COVID is taking its toll on many of us. And I know you're working during all this. So,
Hmm.
what's that like for you to go out every day, knowing that things are
Right.
still kind of questionable out there?
You know what? I never really had a break because I work for attorneys. So I've been working through the entire thing. So it's funny when people say they haven't left their house in like months except to get groceries. I'm like, to me, it almost feels normal besides for the mask. And I mean, I'm already pretty excessive about washing my hands. So, I mean, nothing's really changed except everything closes early and you know but I mean, a lot of people from my office, they worked from home, and my job, I just couldn't work from home. So
Well,
it's
for many of us who are working from home, and obviously I was working from home before COVID.
right.
So the only difference it does for me is that occasionally I would feel really good about just going out and walking at the mall,
Mhm.
and I don't do that anymore. Um,
Yeah.
so I don't notice a change other than I have both my husband and my son at home because neither one of them are working right now. So
Hmm.
I feel a little closed in.
Yes. And I was one of those wives that left during COVID. So um, life changed dramatically for me. Even when I left, I couldn't even find a microwave. I mean, everything because they're not shipping
Right.
things. I
Yeah.
mean, I had to start over and do everything by myself, but couldn't find anything. So, I mean, that did affect me. It's, I know they said that a lot of people will have divorces coming out of this because it's hard, but I, I don't know. I
Well,
don't even know what to say about that. It's just,
well,
COVID just really changed my life.
right. And I think those of us who are staying in our relationships, we're realizing that we've had to make some adjustments.
Mhm.
Um, and I know for my husband and myself and my son, um, we know that we'll go behind closed doors. Alex will go to his room. I'll come into the studio. My husband may go into the bedroom, and we may actually lock the doors for a while um, because we need that alone time. Um, and that alone time might be, hey, I'm just going to take a nap, and I don't want anybody to pay any attention to me taking a nap. Sometimes you might sneak in some cookies that you don't want anybody else to watch you eat. Um, but it takes a lot of work. And I think that's why we're going to see either relationships flourishing because of COVID or, falling apart. And I
Absolutely.
and I don't think we have to hit ourselves up over the head over it. I
Mhm.
think it's, time that we say, hey, this is our journey.
Right.
Our journey is going to take us to the best place because we're going to be in charge now.
Yeah. And I can't say that is easy, that's for sure. I struggle with it daily. There's in hindsight, there's things that I could have done differently, but each day is just a new day. I have to take it day by day. And I have, like you said, this group of girls that have been so amazing. They've held my hand through the entire thing, supporting me, letting me know that, you're good enough. You're fine. You're going to be fine. You just have to take one day at a time. And I have to say that working out and not changing my my schedule has really helped because habits. So I do have to say that if you have a good base of habits, things can, those little endorphins for me for exercise changed my life, honestly, because the days that I was doing in the morning, I'd come home from work because I do work out after work now. I'd come home from work and I would sit in bed, watch TV, and cry, to be honest with you. So I had to put it back to after work because I needed to feel different. I needed to feel that
Sure.
back to be myself. That,
Yeah, and that makes a lot of sense. You know, I think sometimes we get stuck thinking that there's only one way to do something, whether it's for ourselves, our kids, a relationship, our parents. Uh,
mhm,
I once said to somebody that I was brought up to be a pleaser to everybody. And so my whole life pleased my parents because if I please my parents, I'm a good girl and, you
yeah,
know, not going to get in trouble. Um, when I met my first husband, even my second husband was, you know, please your husband, you know,
mhm,
make the food he likes and do the things he likes. And I've started realizing that, whoa, I'm making all these people happy. But at the end of the day, I'm miserable.
mhm,
And it wasn't until, you know, I started thinking about it and like, well, what makes me happy? And right before I left corporate America, I had a manager, and every Friday she would put us all in a room together and we'd go around the room. And sometimes it was, tell me what your favorite food is. I was so miserable, I didn't know what my favorite food was. Or it would be, what's your favorite song? I was so miserable, I couldn't think of my favorite song. And week
right,
after week, I realized I was totally depressed. Everybody else, maybe they were faking it, but they had favorite foods, they had favorite songs, they had
mhm,
favorite places they wanted to go.
yep,
And when I realized that I wasn't happy, I
mhm,
came home and I basically told my husband, you know, I don't think we should be together. Now, at that time, we were together 29 years. And he
oh
looked at
wow,
me, he said, why? I said, I'm not happy. He said, then get happy. And he walked out of the room. And I thought, well,
mhm,
that's terrible. And I followed him and I argued with him. And finally, he turned to me. He said, I don't know what makes you happy. I thought I did, but obviously I don't. And that was the turning point when I realized I had to figure it out. If riding the stationary bike made me happy, I'm going to
yep,
do it. And if he sits there and teases me about it, let him tease me
yeah,
because I'm happy. If I want to watch a Hallmark movie and cry, let me do that.
right.
Those are the things.
Yes, and you know what? In my relationship, looking back, I wish I would have had that discussion because that I wasn't happy. I was relying on him to make me happy, and that's not gonna happen. It's not gonna happen. And I didn't realize somebody can't make you happy. You have to make yourself happy. And for me, what was missing, and now 6 months later, I see that is my girlfriends. I see that I needed them and that I needed to have that space away. And it wasn't him at all, but I didn't give him that chance because I thought it's just not working, instead of knowing that it was me. I My whole life I think I've relied on people to make me happy. The kids made me so happy that that's another thing with them becoming adults, all of them adults and out of the house. I felt like what am I going to do now? What is there for me? I lost my identity almost, and I was looking into him for it instead of into myself. And that's a lesson I think a lot of us empty nesters need to know.
And even if you're not an empty nester, okay,
Right.
you can't let your kids bring you that happiness
Hmm.
because they may not. Okay.
Yeah.
Um, and you know, we all measure happiness and success differently.
Hmm.
And that's another thing that we all have to remember that, you know, like you said, I can be on the same weight loss exercise program as you, and we may lose differently.
Mhm.
The same way, finding that spark that makes us feel good
Yes.
is going to be different. Um, and it's knowing that you don't have to do it alone.
Right, right.
Always somebody out there that will take your hand during the journey.
Yeah, and we almost have to measure things instead of, say you sit down with a friend, and instead of saying, what are your goals, how about the things that you failed at, because that means we're going forward. If you're failing, that means you're trying,
I,
and that's something
yeah,
that I did not do. I wasn't trying, so I wasn't going anywhere. I was complacent myself. So I think that's a huge step that people really need to dig in and talk to people about, is what have you failed at? How do you know it's not for you unless you've tried it?
and that's an important message because failure is a great lesson. And many of us don't think of that. I remember, back in school, well, you can't fail your classes. Well, maybe you can, so you
Mhm.
can figure out what you did wrong so
Right.
you can get that A the next time. Uh,
Right.
but of course, nobody really wants to fail, but we have to go back and look at those mistakes and
Mhm.
learn from them. And maybe they weren't mistakes at all. Maybe,
Exactly.
when you said maybe if you had done things differently 6 months ago,
Mhm.
you know what? This is probably where you're supposed to be right now.
Right.
You know, and
Yeah,
if you had done it differently, you know, who knows where you'd be and what you'd be doing.
you're
Um,
right.
so as we move forward, I want you to tell us a little bit about Beachbody because only thing I know about Beachbody, to be real honest with you, is my mother watched a commercial one night, and this is probably about 10 years ago,
Right.
late at night for Beachbody. And she was so excited because my mother was always on a diet
Mhm.
that she dialed the 800 number. She ordered God knows what from Beachbody. And 2 weeks later, my brother was in town and she was getting deliveries of food supplements and
Oh,
exercise tapes and God knows what else.
yeah.
My brother finally had to call them up and say, look, my mother's 90 years old. We're not sure exactly what happened here. She
Yeah.
thought she was ordering, you know, a food plan and she ordered all this other stuff. And they were wonderful. They took it all back. They
Mhm.
understood. But tell us what it really is.
Well, for me, I have to say that I should have joined years ago. I had somebody 10 years ago that was saying, Tracy, why don't you do this with me? And, we ghost them because we're like, what are they selling me?
Right, exactly.
But for me, the thing is if you found a pair of shoes that you love, you're going to tell your friends. If you go to a restaurant and you eat something and you loved it, you're going to tell your friends, you're going to talk about it. So for me, Beachbody came at the exact right time. A friend kept asking me, a friend that I haven't seen in years ended up, her son was across the hall from Aubrey at Children's Hospital. And I saw her and she looked phenomenal. I mean, her skin was glowing even. And so then she started talking to me about it and I joined. So what it is you get so many workouts like P90X, you get all Sean T's, you get um, Autumn, Calabrese. We have all these super trainers and it's all digital. So you can do a year subscription, or you could do it monthly if you wanted, but you get everything all in one, including the nutrition. And you get a group, which the communities really help me more than some of these people. It's funny, I went to Indianapolis with them. I had never met these people and I was sharing a room with them. I thought, what am I doing? Am I going to get killed, or, what's going on? How can I actually do this? And I'm petrified. I have this anxiety of driving on the freeway. I don't know when it happened, but it's came and gone through my life. I drove myself to Indianapolis, and the girl that had never met before actually drove me home. I mean, it was amazing. These people, the camaraderie, and you think when you get a bunch of girls together that they're gonna be nitpicky and bring people down.
Yep.
This is the most encouraging group of people I have met in my entire life. So I joined as a coach, so that way I knew I would have to show up for myself
Right.
and hold myself accountable, and then I could show up for everybody else. So I've been doing it now for 4 years, for quite some time, and it's just changed my life. We read personal development. So if there's something that you need help with, we teach you that if you don't work on the inside, the outside's not going to change.
Right.
So I mean, we build each other up, and I mean, there's other things that come with it too. The meal plans are amazing. There's two different types. It's just endless. They keep coming out with new things. Actually, tomorrow there's a new program coming out that's Couch to 5K. There's
I've heard about that. Yes.
I'm so excited. There's going to be strength training, and she'll walk you through everything. So we even have meditation and yoga. We have everything, and it's just a whole world and community that pulls together and creates this platform that you can't help but smile. We check in, we have Facebook groups, we have our own app that we check into. It's just motivational. I think that's what kind of spills over into my Facebook sometimes too.
Well, and that's a good thing. Um, and we all need somebody else to help motivate us. They can't
Mhm,
make us take the step.
mhm.
But like I've said, when I see something on your Facebook, um, and I guess I know you well enough, I can read between the lines sometimes. It's like, are you really okay today?
Yeah.
Um, but th- that's part of
Mhm.
this journey. That's part of tracing those steps and being able to say, hey, you know what? No, I'm really not okay today.
Right.
And it's because I took a I took the wrong step.
Mhm.
Um, you know, I
Yep.
go walking every day, and typically I walk with my husband in the morning. Um, although I get up much earlier than him, and so sometimes I'm standing around waiting for him and I'm getting aggravated. But we finally came up with a new plan. And that is if I wake up and the weather is nice and I know I want to go for a walk, I can wake him up,
Mhm.
go for a walk. When I come back, if he's ready to go for a walk, I'll take my second walk.
Okay.
And that's good for me. And I know it is. And that way I'm not standing around and being aggravated. Whereas in the past, I was making these missteps. I was waiting for him to wake up. And sometimes by the time he woke up, it would start to rain or whatever.
Mhm.
And I missed it. I don't want to miss out. I know what I need. And I think you do too.
Yeah, and that's huge, is knowing. And a lot of us don't realize what we need. It takes us to discover. I had a friend that actually had me write down on paper what I want to do, what I'm doing, what makes me happy, what makes me sad, and then it kind of came into fruition when um I realized flowers. That's how I started doing flowers, is that made me happy. But yet people are like, why didn't you open a store? I said, but I know that I wouldn't want to be working 24 hours a day. That does not make me happy. So you just kind of have to feel it out. And I love the fact that you guys decided together that that would work for you to walk and then come back for him.
And, I've realized that same pattern can work in so many other areas.
Mhm.
Um, you're probably, I don't know if you had this with Ben or not, but with Alex he either needs plenty of advance notice on something so he can get himself
Mhm.
scheduled on it. And even sometimes he will decide without relating that he's not going to do it. And I finally had to get to the point of saying, I'm going to give you enough advance notice, but even if you change your mind, I'm still going to do whatever it is.
Oh, yeah.
And it's really helped because instead of me getting angry at him, if he just decided at the last minute, hey, he can't do this,
Mm-hmm.
why am I going to miss out? So I took that from him, turned it over to my husband. And I've even told some of my friends recently, if we plan something and it's something I want to do, I'm going to do it whether you do it or not.
Right.
And that's how you make yourself happy.
And that's a hard lesson, because then on the other side of it, I'm learning how to say no, because I tend to overdo. It doesn't make me happy, but I'm going to do it because it makes so and so happy, and I want to be there for my friends. But a hard lesson is that I need the time. I have to say no. It's nothing against you. It's just the way a friend has taught me, actually, the way you tell them. So it's not hurtful to them, because I was doing something every single night and it wasn't for me. It was to please somebody else. Someone need help, I'd be there. I'd be the first person there. Um, it's a hard lesson
Well,
to learn, is to take care of you and what makes you happy. And you should be super proud of what you've accomplished.
well, I think we all need to be super proud. And that's why we're going to talk about this
Hmm.
every other week on Monday evenings. And I want to invite our listeners to contact us. Let us know if you want to be part of this conversation. It's not just about Tracy, it's not just about me, it's about all of us. And, 2020 has been a difficult year. And I
Yeah.
think this is a good time for us to look at what's in front of us
Hmm.
and really make the most of it. And,
Right.
I don't think it makes any difference what side of the aisle we're on, because our paths need to cross. We need to come together. We need to support each other, um, because you know what? We're all living in this world together.
Absolutely.
So I'm thanking you again for being part of this and tracing your steps with Tracy. Um, what are your last words for today?
That's a rough one for me, but I just really want to say, take a step back and look at what you've achieved so far, because only good can come from it.
I love it. Well, give my love to all your kids,
I will.
and tell Ben that he has a friend here who is so very proud of him. Okay.
I will.
Have a great day, honey. Talk to you
Thank
soon.
you.
Bye bye now.
Bye.